All right, our next to our last week. Wow, hard to believe. And I'm recording a little early, so make sure you're watching attendance for any updated information as we move closer to the end of the semester. One thing I know I've added that I want to make sure I've been clear about is that, and you actually should have selected your topic last week, so just FYI, right? Some people were saying maybe they do part organization of the course material, and other people said they'd maybe do a personal site. My thing is, you need to do one or the other. Don't do a combination. Okay? So hopefully you've gotten the message about that. So here on week 8, we're going to return to lynda.com. I'm going to talk about and show you one of the ways, there are many, that you can compress your images. And then I'm going to build out a couple of pages just to show you that. And then you're going to look at a payment video about Payment Gateway. And in this case, this video is not very long, but man, is this really good compact information. So, like we've done before, I want you to find, when it comes to what you want to do is watch these things when it comes to topics you don't know, is go research them and then help other people by posting research links to videos or articles. So 150 words for your main reply and 2 substantive replies. I just kind of briefly went over, so I said what it was, but let's actually go look at it. So for your lecture for this item, I've actually decided upon this lynda.com course, and it's about an hour long. It's pretty new, an hour and 8 minutes. What I really like about this course is the topic of it is scoping projects related to e-commerce, but what I really want to tell you is that this could be true for any scoping that you would do. And many of you will probably end up working either for a small shop or on your own. And even if you're working for larger companies, understanding how to put together a scope that clearly defines what the user wants, how you're going to meet that, what their requirements is just a vital skill. So the more I watch this course, I'm like, yep, this is what I want to do. Because not only that, it does talk about e-commerce, and that's an important part of understanding it. It does talk some more about payment processors and considerations in that area, but it also talks about other things you need to think about. Shipping, just the stuff that's involved in e-commerce. Really, most of it is also just in general websites. Obviously, there's more detail when you're talking about e-commerce, more things you have to consider, more moving parts, but this is all great stuff, right? So in this case, you're going to create a new file. You're going to call it commerce.md for markdown file, put it in your private repo, and give me a link. Okay, so those are the 2 items. So now let's spend a little time on the hands-on as we've kind of been doing. So now here in week 8, so at this point you should be, and we're going to build out a couple of pages today, seriously thinking about your images. And I've said this, and it's really, if you can, there's a distinction between the images we can get away with using for a project like this versus what you could do commercially. And there's a big wide chasm there, because for a commercial site that you're doing for yourself or somebody else, you can't use Google Images. And even for what we're doing, you got to be a little careful about using Google Images. So using your own stuff probably makes the most sense here, right? I gotta change the write-up. I haven't done that yet. So let me just show you there's a couple things I want you to do here. One is that I want to show you an online image compression, and it's compress JPEG. Now there's other ones for PNGs that you could use, so there's several out there like this. So what I thought I'd do, and I want you to at least see this, right? So actually I took a photo, I've already done it, and I uploaded it into here, and then I downloaded it. But I can already see before that is it lowered it by 5%, which might not seem like a lot, but trust me, over time, and if you could get 5% off of every image in your site, in a really commercial site, that's way important. I mean, seriously, right? It'd be worth doing that. And I showed you when I looked at Pixlr how you can optimize that image by sliding it, and you do have some impacts, of course, on the image quality. But I didn't notice any here, which was really amazing. So let me just show you this one that I did. First, we'll do this next time. But on my downloads, let me just sort them real quick so we can see here. Well, let me just download it again. Right, so it's a little below the screen. Oh, it already disappeared because I had already done it, right? So actually, let's just go through it then, since that happened. So let me go to my 82 and then go to my here, and then I looked at my images I'd already been playing with. And I was like, okay, so this image right now, and I think I ended up choosing this one, was 111 kilobytes. So I just went ahead and uploaded it into here. Oh, actually, that doesn't work, what I just did, because it actually thinks you're going to open. So you actually have to use this little feature of the upload instead of just dragging it in. And I'm going to open that up. Right, and then what it's doing is it's actually compressing it, and this is the one I was talking about, right? So here's the, right, so this is the image, right? So there's really, I mean, literally not, I can't see any difference. I'd have to look really close to see any difference. So I get 5% out of that. So what I want you to do in this example is I want you to find at least a couple of images, because you need to be thinking about, because that's one of the requirements for the Project Zero, is you need to have an image on every page, right? So you want to be looking at your images, because there's besides just finding images, then you have to make the images work in your site. So that's actually the next thing I wanted to talk about. Let me move to my editor real quick. So right now I have my index page, and if I just look at it real quick, I'll show you what I've done to it. Just a few things since we last talked. I actually ended up looking at the mocks because I thought, oh, maybe I'll use them, maybe I won't. But I actually figured out how to get the image in here. And it took a little bit of work, honestly. Now, you may not run into this, but this is kind of just for your information in case you ever run into a situation like this. And by the way, I could actually go, and this is the great thing about actually having your template in here, is that I could go look at the original site, right? So in this case, I could just go and say, you know what? Look at that original one, so I could see that one as well. Oh, I moved something. I can't do it. This is what I told you not to do, and here's why, right? But one of the things when I was looking at inspect, so that's really where I'll go here. As I was looking at inspect, and I was trying to find out what dimensions did they want that matched in this what we call device mockup. So I played around, and ultimately what I did is I looked at the original image that was in there, which I'll show you that image right here. So if I look at desktop and I look at 82, and I look at here, and I look at images, this is the original image that was on there, and I looked at it at 621 by 1004. So what I ended up doing is I took a photo that didn't exactly look, or didn't exactly have that ratio, and I talked about ratio last time, the pixels width to height ratio. So I modified it a little bit. It was pretty easy. I just took off the restriction, and then I could make that second number whatever I wanted. And by doing that, it allowed me to drop that image in because it was cutting it off before. Now, again, you may not run into this, but this is an important part of oftentimes dealing with these templates, is that you have to figure out how to make images work based on their CSS. And the more you know about CSS, let me go back here, the more you understand about CSS, the more you can go in and start playing. Right? And you create your own CSS or modify their CSS, right? So mine's over here. So but in this course, we're dipping our toes in there. We're not getting too far. You should have enough knowledge to be able to, know what the bootstrap classes are. So this is a little beyond the scope, but some of you may run into this, so I thought I would just give you that heads up. That's how I approach it. I look at, and notice as I'm hovering over here, it says 284 by 503. That's actually the browser and the CSS code actually making this smaller, but its natural size, its actual size is 621 by 1100. So that's the photo I need. I needed to get close to those dimensions to make that photo look right in that instance, right? So that's why when last week I showed you how to edit, how to resize, that's why those are important. But you can also sometimes change your aspect ratio and make it look a little taller. And it didn't really hurt my heart that it made me look a little skinnier. You should laugh at that. That was funny. Okay, so in the work that you'll need to do, I want you to reply with that you've at least found a couple images you're going to use. Like I said, you can go to images.google.com. You can use your own if you're using your personal sites, right? You can, let me go to web, just here, right? So you have to be careful and just look at if they allow you to use this. It might be subject to copyright. You want to know more about that. Again, we can get away with a little more leniency because it's the educational class, but find a couple of images you would like to use, right? Even if you don't ultimately use them, and run them through this idea of making them fit in your site, right? Making them look good on a page in your site, because that will be one of the more challenging aspects, because each of your templates will handle the images differently as far as how they are on the page. And if it doesn't have any, then you have to figure out how to make at least one image fit on there, because each page needs an image, because images are a huge part of the web. Okay, so now that I've talked about that, and in your reply, tell us your, maybe give us, matter of fact, like we did last week here, where I had you actually go and do that, find some images here, at least a couple that you're going to want to do, and include them in your site, because we're going to build out a couple of pages here. So include these in your site, and then your write-up, tell how much compression that you got, right? And so if you were compressing PNGs, right, I could actually just go PNG compressor, and I'm sure I could find a similar, almost identical, except it's PNGs versus the other one I used. Okay, so now let me actually move back to the editor. I'm going to close this out, and as you can see, I already built this subpage, but I'm going to say this again, is before you do that, make sure you're good with this, because the less this changes from here forward, the easier your life's going to be. Okay, so what I did, I went ahead and built my page called Life. So basically what I did is I just copied this page, right? So let me actually go ahead and build another one. Let me go ahead and build work. So at this point, I could do it a couple ways. I could do it through the file system if I wanted. I'm going to go ahead and pull these up a little bit. Like I could go to the file system and do it. That'd be one way. But I could also, right, because everything in my example is going to start, it'll be the look of the index page, and then I will change that background like I showed you before. So now I'm going to come in here, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to create a new page, and I'm going to call this one, oh, look at where it went. I'm not going to do it there, I'm going to do it here. I'm going to get rid of that other one, I'm going to call this one, what did I say, work.html, right? And then I'm going to paste that in there. And remember, one of the things you have to do for this work is actually update your title tag, right? So I'd say something like my work, right? So I'm actually going to get rid of that. All right, so now, because I've spent the time to make sure that this menu is what I'm going to use, right? So I now have two files that I can, and these are my landing pages then for my menu that will link to other pages, right? So in this case, let's just go ahead and look at the output so you can see it. Let me get rid of that. There we go. So if I click on Life, this is the one I was playing with last time, and if I click on Work, then that takes me to one that looks like the index page, but again, that's why looking at the address is really important here, so you know what pages you're on. The other thing I did is I made the link to from Bootstrap. I called it my name. I put a link to the HTML, so that made it easier, right? So in this case, I have now 2 of my pages built out. So I would want you to have, really it's pretty simple if you're sure this is your menu to go ahead and build this out and then find some photos and start thinking about the content you're going to use for this. Right? And then just give us a link to your GitHub IO once you're done. Okay? So that's what you need to do for this assignment. Find a couple of images you want to use, get them to work in your page, see how they look, build out at least 2. I would say more if you can, because the more you do this, the easier it's going to get over time. Again, thinking about the time frame as far as the end of the semester, so keep that in mind as well. Okay, and then push those out to do your GitHub workflow, right? And then in your writing, tell us about how much compression you got on some of your images, because PNGs are going to have different compressions, and also if your file was already compressed, if it wasn't, then you'll get greater compression. So I want to know some of the comparison of things that you got with using, at least I showed you the PNG and the JPEG compression. Okay? All right. I'll start working on Thursday's item. Talk to you later.